They say a mother's instinct never lies, but what if the real danger isn't outside your home, it's sitting right across your dinner table? This is the story of a daughter trapped, a mother who refused to stay silent, and the man who nearly destroyed them both. My name is Lena Hartley, and I never thought my life would unravel over a cup of coffee and a lie. My family owns Hartley Corner Cafe, a small business my late husband and I built from nothing, brick by brick, recipe by recipe. It was supposed to be my legacy. Instead, it became the battleground where my daughters nearly destroyed each other. It started on a calm Thursday morning. I was wiping down the front counter, inhaling the warm scent of fresh cinnamon rolls, when my oldest daughter, Mara, burst through the back door. Her face was flushed, her hair frizzed from running, and she held a folder in her hand like it was a weapon. "Mom," she said breathlessly. "It's about Talia. She's been stealing money from the cafe." The cloth froze in my hand. "Talia?" I repeated, stunned. "What are you talking about?" She slapped the folder onto the counter, paper spilling everywhere. "Look. Transactions. Withdrawals. Fake supplier invoices. She's been siphoning money for months." Mark found it. Mark, her husband. Our cafe's operations manager. The man my husband once trusted more than his own brother. He had been helping Mara run things ever since I stepped back last year to recover from my surgery. I picked up the papers, scanning the numbers. My stomach twisted with every line. There were bank transfers under Talia's name, her employee ID, her digital signature. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why would she do this?" "She doesn't care about us," Mara said, anger flashing in her eyes. "She only cares about herself." Mark confronted her this morning and she ran. She didn't even deny it. Ran? That didn't sound like my Talia. She was gentle, quiet, careful to the point of caution. She had worked at the cafe since she was 15, always early, always respectful, always trying too hard because she never believed she deserved anything. And then there was the other detail. The one Mara didn't mention, but I already knew. She was 2 months pregnant. I hadn't told anyone. She had come to me trembling 2 weeks earlier, whispering the news like it was a confession instead of a blessing. I promised her she was safe. That I'd help her. That she wouldn't be alone. And now I was being told she stole from us? No. Something was wrong. I pressed my hand to my forehead. "Where is she now?" Mara shrugged. "Probably hiding. Or spending the money." "I'm sorry, Mom, but she betrayed us. And Mark thinks we should call the police." The air drained from my lungs. Police? I needed time. And answers. And the truth, not whatever filtered version Mark had handed my daughter. "I'll handle this," I said firmly. Mara frowned. "Handle it how?" "She stole from us." I didn't reply. Because even if every paper in that folder was real, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. My daughter doesn't run from me. Not unless she's terrified. That night, long after the cafe closed, I sat alone in my office staring at those papers. They looked official. They looked damning. But my gut screamed something else entirely. So I pulled out my phone and sent one message to the only person I trusted with impossible situations. "Detective Rowan, I need your help. Find Talia." Quietly. My hands trembled as I hit send. Something was wrong. And I was about to find out exactly how deep the lie went. But when Rowan finally found my daughter, she wasn't hiding. She was living somewhere no mother should ever discover her child. Detective Rowan didn't message me back until noon the next day. I was standing behind the cafe register, pretending to focus on customers, but my mind had been spiraling since sunrise. When my phone vibrated in my apron pocket, I stepped into the storage room and answered immediately. "I found her," Rowan said without preamble. His voice carried a weight that tightened my chest. "Where?" I asked. A beat of silence. "You won't like it, Lena." My heart began to pound. Tell me. She's behind the old rail yard on 5th. The abandoned delivery depot. In her car. Her car? That meant she hadn't gone far. She hadn't fled with stolen money. She was still here, alone, scared. Is she okay? I whispered. Another pause. Physically? She seems fine. But she's shaken. And she refused to talk to me. He lowered his voice. She told me to leave her alone. And when I mentioned you, she panicked. Panicked at the sound of her mother's name. Something icy crawled down my spine. I'm coming now. Lena. But I had already hung up. I grabbed my keys, walked past Mara, ignoring her puzzled look, and headed for my car. Every mile toward the rail yard twisted the knot in my stomach tighter. I knew Talia. I raised her. And nothing about this theft made sense. The girl who cried if she took the last muffin sample from the tray wasn't capable of draining business accounts. And the girl I saw when I pulled into that abandoned depot? She was even further from the monster in Mark's reports. Her old sedan was parked crooked against a cracked concrete wall. The windows were fogged. A blanket was draped awkwardly across the back seat. I stepped out of my car slowly, afraid to startle her. When I tapped the window gently, the blanket shifted, and her face appeared. My breath caught. Her eyes were red, swollen. Her cheeks streaked with dried tears. Her lips trembled when she saw me. Baby, I whispered through the glass. Please open the door. Her head moved sharply, a shake. Not of anger. Of terror. No, she mouthed. Go. I tried again. Talia, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to know the truth. She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. She looked so small. So fragile. Nothing like the hardened thief Mara portrayed. Who told you? She choked out. Her voice muffled through the door. Told me what? That I stole the money. Her voice cracked. I didn't. I swear. But he said, she stopped abruptly, clamping her mouth shut. He? I pressed gently. Who said what? Her gaze darted around wildly, as if someone might be watching. Mom, please just leave. If he sees you here, she broke off again, panic rising in her eyes. Fear. Not guilt. Fear. My heart hammered. Talia, tell me who threatened you. She pressed both hands against the window, desperate and trembling. Please go. Her voice was barely a whisper. He said if I talked, he'd take everything from me. Everything. My blood ran cold. You're pregnant, I said softly. Is he threatening your baby? Her eyes filled instantly, tears spilling past her lashes. She nodded once. A small, broken nod that shattered me. I reached for the door handle. I'm not leaving you like this. She recoiled, sobbing. Please, Mom. Go. I don't want him to hurt you too. Hurt me? Now I knew without a doubt. Someone was controlling her. Someone had framed her. Someone was holding something over her head. But who? Mara? No. She was emotional, reactive, but not dangerous. Mark? I felt the truth before I could even name it. The man who had access to the accounts. The man who found the evidence. The man who insisted she was guilty. The man she might have caught doing something he didn't want anyone to see. I backed away slowly, my hands shaking. Talia, I said softly, I'm going to fix this. I promise you. No, she cried, hitting the window. Please don't. But it was too late. Because my instincts were screaming the one thing she was too afraid to say out loud. The person she was terrified of was inside my house. And while I stood there with my daughter sobbing behind a locked car door, Mark was already calling me, asking where I was. The phone call I shouldn't have answered. My phone buzzed before I even made it back to my car. The name flashing on the screen made my stomach clench. Mark. I stared at it for a heartbeat too long. He never called me directly, everything usually went through Mara. So why now? I swallowed hard and forced my voice steady. Hello? Lena, he said warmly, too warmly. I came by the cafe and they said you left suddenly. Everything okay? My eyes drifted back to Talia's fogged-up windows, her silhouette trembling inside. I stepped farther away before answering. I just had something to take care of. Something like what? His tone shifted almost imperceptibly. A softness gone. A sharpness sliding in. I hesitated. The silence stretched too long. He noticed. Is this about the money? He asked. A chill crawled up my neck. How would you know where I am? I asked, keeping my voice level. I don't, he said calmly. I'm only asking a reasonable question. Mara is worried. I'm worried. You shouldn't be running around alone right now, you're still recovering. That last sentence wasn't concern. It was a reminder. A pressure point. I cleared my throat. I'm fine. You sure? A pause. That's not what it looks like. My heart lurched. What does he mean by that? Where are you? He continued. I'll come meet you. We can sort this together. My grip tightened on the phone. His eagerness didn't feel helpful, it felt strategic. I don't need you to meet me, I said quietly. Lena, he said, lowering his voice the way people do when they think they're speaking to a child or a fool, this situation is delicate. And you going off on your own, it complicates things. Complicates what? The fraud he committed? The threats he made? The control he had over Talia? A sudden, cold clarity ran through me. If he suspected I was anywhere near her, he would come immediately. Not to help. To silence her. I forced a light, airy tone. I'm just picking up supplies. I'll be back soon. He paused again. Too long. Then, a slow exhale. All right. I'll see you at home. The line clicked dead. I didn't breathe until I was sure he'd hung up. Talia's frightened face flickered in my mind. Her trembling voice. Her whisper about him seeing me here. Mark. I walked back to her car window. She looked up, eyes wide and haunted. I have to go, I told her through the glass. But listen to me, stay in your car. Keep your doors locked. Do not talk to anyone except me or Detective Rowan. I'll come back. Soon. I promise. She shook her head desperately, but I stepped away before she could protest. I wasn't abandoning her. I was going to do the one thing she was too terrified to do. I was going to fight. As I drove away, I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. Mark knew something was off. He was watching me more closely than I realized. But I couldn't let fear stop me now. Not when my daughter was hiding in a broken-down car with no food, no money, and a baby she was terrified of losing. I called Detective Rowan. We need to talk, I said. It's about Mark. Good, Rowan replied. Because I found something you need to see. My breath hitched. What is it? I don't want to say it over the phone. Come to my office. I turned the car around. Whatever he found, whatever had driven my daughter from her home, was waiting for me on the other side of that door. But the moment I stepped into Rowan's office, he said the one sentence that changed everything. Lena, your son-in-law wasn't just stealing money. Detective Rowan's office was small, cluttered, and smelled faintly of old coffee and printer ink. Normally I would have noticed the crooked blinds or the stack of files leaning dangerously on his desk, but not today. Today, the only thing I saw was Rowan's face, the tightness in his jaw, the warning in his eyes. He closed the door behind me. Sit down, Lena. I did, though my legs trembled. He pulled out a manila folder and set it between us with a heavy thud. This, he said quietly, isn't just a case of workplace fraud. I stared at the folder as if opening it might unleash something I couldn't control. Just tell me, I whispered. Rowan took a breath. I had a digital forensics analyst go through the cafe's financial records. Not the files Mark gave your daughter. The real files. The ones backed up off-site. My stomach sank. And? He slid the folder toward me. Your son-in-law has been transferring money out of the cafe for nearly 3 years. Quietly. Systematically. 3 years. My mind reeled. That meant this started long before Talia's pregnancy. Long before my surgery. Maybe even before my husband died. Rowan continued, we found shell accounts under different variations of his name. Even accounts under someone named April Lane. My brow furrowed. Who is that? No idea yet. Could be a partner. Could be an alias. He paused, then added more softly, but he's been draining your business in small amounts. 10,000 here. 5,000 there. Enough to hide. Enough to accumulate. How much? He didn't blink. Rough estimate? Around $420,000. I felt the world tilt under me. Rowan watched me carefully. Lena, the records Mark gave Mara? The evidence against Talia? It's all fabricated. Every file was created from his office computer. He framed her intentionally. My breath caught. Why her? Why Talia? We're still digging, Rowan said. But I have a theory. I clenched my fists. Tell me. Talia worked in the cafe office sometimes, right? Doing inventory counts, organizing receipts? She helped with small paperwork, yes. Well, he said, leaning back, that means she may have seen something. Something Mark didn't want anyone to notice. And when she got pregnant. He let the sentence trail off. But I understood. When she got pregnant, she became vulnerable. Easier to threaten. Easier to control. Easier to silence. A wave of nausea washed through me. And that's not all. Rowan reached into the folder again. Mark's been visiting a private storage facility outside town. Extremely frequently. More often than a man with a stable home life should. My heart thudded painfully. Storage? For what? Rowan's expression hardened. That's what we need to find out. But I'll tell you this, people who steal money often hide documents, hard drives, backups. Leverage. Evidence. Evidence he never planned for anyone to see. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. My son-in-law. The man who tutored my daughter in accounting. The man my husband once called family. He had been stealing from us for years. And he used my youngest daughter as a shield. What do we do next? I asked, my voice barely holding steady. Rowan folded his hands. We build a case silently. Methodically. You can't confront him. You can't mention you saw Talia. You can't act differently. A cold dread spread through me. I have to go home, I whispered. To him. To pretend nothing is wrong. Yes, Rowan said. Because if Mark suspects you know the truth. He stopped, but the unfinished warning hung in the air like a blade. I swallowed hard. Talia said he threatened her baby. Rowan nodded grimly. And he'll threaten a lot more if he feels cornered. I pushed the folder away slowly. I had walked into this office thinking my daughter was the victim of a misunderstanding. I walked out knowing she was the victim of a predator. And he was sitting at my dinner table every night. But the moment I reached home, before I could gather myself, Mark was already there at the door, waiting for me. Mark stood in the doorway like a shadow that had been waiting for me to come home. His posture was relaxed, too relaxed. one hand in his pocket, the other resting against the doorframe. A casual stance meant to look harmless. It didn't fool me anymore. "Lena," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Long day?" My heart hammered, but I forced my face into the same neutral expression I'd worn for years. "Yes. I stopped by a few places." "Places like where?" he asked lightly, stepping aside so I could enter. "You left the cafe in a hurry." Mara was worried. There it was again, that word. Worried. He used it the way a puppeteer might tug a string. I walked past him, setting my purse on the dining table. "I just needed air." He watched me too closely. You weren't at any hospital, were you?" I froze. "Hospital? Why would he?" He smirked when he saw the way I stiffened. "Relax," he said. "I'm only checking on your health. You've been fragile lately." The word struck like an insult. Fragile. Weak. Easily manipulated. The same way he wanted Talia to feel. I busied myself with straightening the mail, avoiding his gaze. "Where's Mara?" "Upstairs. Shower." He took a step closer. "Did you talk to anyone today?" My pulse spiked. I kept my head down. "I talked to plenty of people." "Anyone unexpected?" I met his eyes finally. "What are you getting at, Mark?" He shrugged, but it was forced. "Just making sure you're not getting confused by rumors. Or by people who don't understand the full situation." The full situation. I wanted to spit the words back at him, shout what I knew. But Rowan's warning replayed in my head. If Mark suspects you know the truth, he might act before we're ready. So I inhaled slowly and did the hardest thing I'd done yet, I pretended ignorance. "I'm too tired for drama," I said, letting my shoulders sag as if exhausted. "I barely slept last night. I'm just trying to hold the cafe together." For a moment, Mark studied me, his eyes sharp and searching. Then, like a blade sliding back into its sheath, he softened. "Well." He patted my shoulder. "Let me know if you need help. I'll take care of the financial side until you recover your strength." My stomach twisted. He wasn't offering help. He was marking territory. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. He walked into the kitchen, humming under his breath, and opened the fridge like it belonged solely to him. My instinct screamed to run upstairs, barricade myself inside a room, call Rowan, tell him everything Mark had just implied. But instead, I forced myself to move normally. Calmly. I poured water into a glass. I sat on the couch. I breathed. Because Rowan was right. If Mark sensed even a crack in the facade, he'd push until everything shattered. Minutes later, Mara came downstairs, her hair wet, her expression innocent and trusting in a way that made my chest ache. She walked straight to Mark, kissing his cheek, leaning into him. She had no idea the serpent she was holding onto. She glanced at me. "Mom? You okay?" I smiled weakly. "Just tired." She nodded and snuggled closer to her husband. Mark met my eyes over her shoulder. His smile was small. Cold. Knowing. I excused myself and went upstairs, closing my bedroom door with careful quiet. The moment the latch clicked, emotion slammed into me like a wave: fear, rage, guilt, helplessness. And then my phone buzzed. It was Rowan. "Lena, I need you to come back tomorrow morning. I found something in that storage unit. Something you're not going to like." My breath hitched painfully. Storage unit. The one Mark visited secretly. The one he guarded. The one he thought no one knew about. I texted back, "I'll be there." "What did you find?" Rowan replied with 2 words. Words that made my blood run cold. A threat. But it wasn't a threat against the cafe. It was a threat against someone Mark believed he had full control over, someone I had just promised to protect with my life. The storage unit. The next morning, I told Mara I had a supplier meeting, kissed her on the cheek, and walked out the door before she or Mark could ask questions. My heart pounded the entire way to Detective Rowan's office. I didn't know what he'd found, but the word threat echoed in my mind the whole drive. When I arrived, he didn't waste time on greetings. "Follow me," he said, grabbing a folder and his keys. We drove 10 minutes outside town to a row of metal storage units lined up like cold steel coffins. The air was crisp, the gravel crunching under our shoes as Rowan stopped at Unit 27. He pulled up the rolling door. Inside, the dim fluorescent light flickered, revealing the kind of space you'd expect a criminal to rent secretly. Metal shelving. Cardboard boxes. A locked filing cabinet. But the first thing I noticed wasn't any of that. It was the wall on the left. Covered in pinned documents. Printed emails. Bank statements. Photos. And at the very center, a large picture of Talia. My breath caught violently. Her photo was marked with red pen. Circles. Notes. Arrows pointing toward her name and her position at the cafe. What is all this?" I whispered. Rowan stepped beside me. "Evidence that Mark has been preparing this for a long time." I walked closer, trembling. There were pictures of Talia entering and leaving work. Pictures from months ago. Even one of her sitting inside the cafe office, taken through the window. "Stalking," Rowan said grimly. "Documenting her movements. Building a timeline." "For what?" I asked, voice cracking. "To frame her," he replied. "To make it look like she had access to every file he falsified." My knees weakened. "He planned this?" "For years." I covered my mouth. Tears stung my eyes. "Why her, Rowan? Why target her specifically?" He sighed heavily. "Look at this." He handed me a printed email. It was from my late husband's old attorney, dated nearly a year before Mark started stealing. I skimmed the lines. "Upon your retirement, ownership shares of Hartley Corner Cafe are to be split 60% to Lena Hartley and 40% to Talia Hartley." I froze. Not Mara. Not Mark. Talia. My late husband wanted Talia to inherit part of the cafe. I didn't know about this," I whispered. Rowan nodded. "The will was revised shortly before your husband died. Mark must have found this email in old files." My head spun. If Talia inherited 40% of the cafe, Mark's access to the business would be threatened. His theft would eventually be discovered. He wouldn't be able to control everything. And when she got pregnant, Rowan added, she became an even bigger obstacle. He probably feared she'd stop working or dig deeper into finances. I felt sick. He had motive, Rowan continued. Opportunity. And months of planning. I turned toward the filing cabinet. "What's in there?" Rowan unlocked it. Inside lay a thick folder labeled Mitchell case. Mitchell was Talia's last name. I opened it. Inside were doctored police reports. Fake witness statements. Screenshots of emails she never wrote. Even a fabricated confession letter, one she had supposedly typed. "He was going to turn all this in," Rowan said quietly. "If Talia pushed back or exposed anything, he'd have destroyed her." I put the folder down, shaking violently. "He wasn't just framing her," I whispered. "He was erasing her." A cold truth settled in my bones. I wasn't dealing with a greedy son-in-law. I was dealing with a man who had calculated my daughter's downfall, down to the last detail. Rowan rested a hand on my shoulder. "We have more than enough for an arrest. But we must do this carefully. If Mark thinks you know, he'll panic." I inhaled shakily. "What do you need me to do?" "We set a trap," Rowan said. "And you're the bait." My stomach nodded. "And Lena," he added, lowering his voice. "This isn't just about money. It's about control. And when men like Mark lose control, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. I already knew whose safety was in immediate danger. Talia. And her unborn child. So when I finally returned home, I found something on my kitchen table that told me Mark was already one step ahead of us, and the trap was no longer ours alone to set. A warning on the table. When I stepped back into my house, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Too still. Too careful. The kind of silence that feels staged, like someone had walked around, straightened things, and then waited for me to find the difference. And I found it instantly. On the kitchen table, right where I usually set my purse, sat a small yellow envelope. No name. No markings. Just placed there deliberately, like someone wanted it to be the very first thing I saw. My heart kicked against my ribs. Mark. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I glanced around the kitchen. Every cabinet closed. No mug out of place. No shoes by the door. But the envelope, it radiated tension. I finally sat down, reached forward, and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Printed. No handwriting. A message. Stop looking. Stop digging. Take care of your family and leave business matters to the people who understand them. My breath caught. The word family was bolded. Underlined twice. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't meant to be. It was a threat wrapped in politeness. A reminder that Mark knew exactly how much I loved the people under this roof, and that he was willing to use them. I folded the paper, my hands shaking so badly the page crinkled. I had to force myself to breathe. I needed calm. Control. Logic. But then I heard footsteps. I quickly stuffed the paper into my pocket right as Mara walked in. "Mom?" she asked, drying her hair with a towel. "You're home early." "Suppliers cancelled," I said smoothly, even though my throat felt tight. "Just grabbed groceries instead." She nodded and opened the fridge, humming softly. She had no idea. Absolutely no clue what her husband was capable of. "Where's Mark?" I asked carefully. "Morning meeting," she replied. "He left a little after you did." I exhaled slowly. "Did he leave anything for me? Any notes or reminders?" She shook her head. "Not that I saw." My pulse thudded painfully. So he left the envelope when she wasn't looking. He hid things even from his own wife. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled the threatening note out again. My reflection looked pale, older, shaken. But my eyes burned with something new. Determination. I snapped a quick photo of the note and sent it to Rowan with one message. "He knows. We might be running out of time." His reply came immediately. "Meet me in 2 hours. Bring nothing from the house. Don't let Mark see anything unusual." I typed back, "Understood." But as I slid my phone back into my pocket, I froze. A shadow moved past the bottom of the bathroom door. Slow. Deliberate. Listening. My lungs stopped working. Was it Mara? Or was it? I waited, barely daring to breathe. The shadow paused, then moved away. When I finally stepped out minutes later, the hallway was empty, but the air felt wrong, heavy with the sense that someone had been standing right there. Watching. Testing. I moved carefully back to my room, planning what I needed to take, nothing important, just my coat and keys, but when I reached the bedroom door, it was open. Wide open. I always closed it. Always. My pulse spiked as I stepped inside. My dresser drawer was cracked open an inch. My closet door slightly ajar. Someone had been in here. Someone searching. Someone checking what I knew. Then I noticed something else. A pair of my shoes moved slightly out of place, and beneath them, folded neatly, was another slip of paper. This one handwritten. 2 chilling words. "Careful, Lena." My breath shattered in my chest. Mark wasn't just suspicious. He was watching me. He was inside my space. My room. My privacy. My safety. And if he was already this bold, then Talia was in even more danger than we realized. I grabbed my coat, my phone, and nothing else. I had to reach Rowan before Mark decided to escalate. But on my way out, I saw Mark's car turning into the driveway, and he wasn't alone. The unexpected passenger. Mark's car gliding into the driveway felt like a punch to the lungs. I froze on the front steps, my coat half-buttoned, keys clutched so tight the edges dug into my skin. Then I saw her. In the passenger seat. Talia. My daughter. The same daughter I had left trembling in her car 2 days ago. The same daughter who begged me not to tell him where she was. The same daughter who had been hiding from him. She looked smaller than I remembered. Pale. Eyes red, like she'd cried the entire ride here. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, fingers locked together so stiffly it hurt to look at. Mark noticed me and flashed a warm, easy smile that didn't match the dread clawing up my spine. Perfect timing, he said brightly, stepping out. Look who I found. 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 The word echoed with a sickening weight. Talia? I forced a smile, though my heart hammered. Sweetheart, are you okay? She didn't answer. She looked at me the way someone looks at a lifeline, close yet just out of reach. Mark opened her door like a gentleman, holding out a hand for her. Her flinch was small. Almost invisible. But I saw it. Every instinct in me screamed to run to her, pull her away, lock her behind me. But Mark watched every twitch of my face, every breath. Lena, he said softly, she's been staying with a friend. Apparently she didn't think she could come home without clearing things up. He placed a guiding hand on her back. Her shoulders tightened. She called me, Mark continued. Said she needed help. So I picked her up. Lie. All of it. A lie wrapped in kindness, dipped in poison. I swallowed. Talia? Is that true? Her lips parted. A breath trembled out. Then. Yes. But her eyes screamed no. Mark's smile widened, satisfied with her answer. See? Just a misunderstanding. He ushered her toward the porch, walking behind her like a shepherd guarding a lamb, or a wolf guarding prey. Let's all sit and talk, he suggested. We're a family. Families fix things together. A family. My daughter's tormentor. Her trapper. Her abuser. The note in my pocket burned like fire. Careful, Lena. I stepped aside to let them in, but every nerve in my body stayed coiled, ready. Talia shuffled inside, her breath shaky. When I closed the door behind us, the soft click felt like sealing us inside a cage. Mark stood between us for a moment, then glanced at me knowingly. Why were you heading out? I forced a shrug. Groceries. We're low on fruit. His eyes dipped to my empty hands, no purse, no bags. He noticed everything. Go later, he said casually. Let's focus on Talia. Talia sat at the dining table, hands trembling under the surface. She wouldn't look up. Wouldn't speak. She seemed hollowed out. Talia, Mark said, sliding into the chair beside her. Tell your mother what you told me. Her voice cracked before words even came. I messed up. I shouldn't have left. I should have stayed and talked things out. Rehearsed. Forced. Coerced. I stepped closer, touching her shoulder gently. She flinched again, more noticeable this time, and Mark's eyes snapped to my hand like a threat. That's right, he murmured to her. We can fix this if we all stay calm. I met Talia's eyes. And right there, I saw it. Fear. Apology. And a plea. A silent message only a mother could read. Help me. I swallowed hard. Of course we can fix things, I said slowly. But first, Talia needs rest. She can barely stand. She's fine, Mark cut in quickly. Too quickly. A little overwhelmed, that's all. No, I said gently but firmly. She needs rest. Silence stretched between us. Talia's breath hitched. Mark's jaw tightened. He leaned back, smiling again, but this time, the smile didn't pretend to be warm. I knew you'd say that, Lena, he said softly, almost amused. He tapped the table twice with his index finger. Then he added. Which is why I brought something else with me. My spine stiffened. He reached into his jacket pocket. Not for a weapon. For a folded document. He slid it across the table toward me. A printed custody petition. Filed. Dated. Signed. Mark was trying to take her baby. And the moment I saw the final signature, I realized he wasn't planning to control Talia anymore. He was planning to own her child. The custody trap. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The custody petition stared up at me like a legal death sentence. Cold. Unfeeling. Final. Talia's hand flew to her mouth, her shoulders trembling. Mark, you said that was just a draft. A precaution, he corrected smoothly, placing a firm hand on her thigh under the table. You know, in case you made poor decisions again. Her breath shattered. And I felt something inside me snap, quietly, like a small bone breaking under pressure. I picked up the document with steady fingers, even though my insides were shaking. It was real. Filed 2 days ago. Not after she ran away. Before. You were planning this, I said, voice low. Mark offered a shrug, calm, calculated. I was preparing for potential outcomes. As any responsible parent would. You're not the parent, I replied sharply. He leaned forward, eyes cold. I will be. I've been there for every appointment. Every class. Every craving. Every scare. What has she had? Panic attacks? Vanishing acts? Irrational suspicions? Talia's voice cracked. You made me scared. No, he interrupted, tightening his grip under the table until she winced. I protected you. I gave you structure. You can't handle stress, Talia. You've proven that. My chest burned. He wasn't arguing. He wasn't debating. He was rewriting her reality, right in front of us. You manipulated her, I said quietly. You isolated her. You frightened her until she thought you were her only safe place. Mark's smile widened. Funny. That's exactly what unstable people say when they lose control. I sucked in a breath. He was twisting every truth. Every action. Every fear. Turning it all into his narrative. This petition says you're seeking full custody, I said. On what grounds? He tapped the paragraph smugly. Medical instability. Emotional volatility. Lack of income. No permanent residence. Exposure to unsafe influences. His eyes flicked to me. So, naturally, he added, a judge will see I'm the only consistent, responsible adult in this scenario. Talia shook her head rapidly, tears streaming down. I didn't know, you weren't supposed to file it yet. He brushed her cheek with mock tenderness. Sweetheart, I told you. I make decisions for the good of our family. You're under a lot of pressure. You can't think clearly. I stepped between them before she collapsed entirely. Talia, go upstairs. Rest. Mark stood immediately. She stays. The air changed. Thickened. Talia froze, staring at him with raw fear. And he knew it. He thrived in it. Let her rest, I repeated, this time firmer. She needs a moment. Mark's jaw flexed. Then he laughed softly. Mom instincts, so predictable. He moved closer, close enough that I smelled his cologne. That expensive, suffocating scent he used to mask the rot underneath. Lena, he said quietly, you keep pushing boundaries. But you have no idea how fragile Talia is right now. She needs stability. Certainty. A decision maker. She needs freedom, I snapped. He raised a brow. Freedom? The freedom to run? To accuse? To destroy her future? She was running from you, I said, letting the truth spill like ice. His eyes flickered. Then darkened. A slow, dangerous smile formed on his lips. Careful with accusations, Lena, he murmured. Because if this goes to court, I'll have to explain why Talia was receiving unsafe advice. Why someone was filling her head with paranoia. You think anyone believes I'd sabotage my own daughter? He tilted his head. Not sabotage. Misdirect. Older people get confused. Emotional. Manipulative without realizing it. That hit me like a slap. He wasn't just trying to take Talia's baby. He was preparing to paint me as unstable too. Talia suddenly stood up, voice weak but determined. Mom didn't do anything. You're twisting everything. Mark's face shifted. Barely. A tightening around his eyes. Talia, he said softly, sit. She didn't. For the first time, she didn't obey. His smile cracked, just slightly. And I realized something. Mark wasn't angry she left. He was angry she came back with her own voice. He stepped toward her. I stepped in front of her. A slow exhale left his lips, a warning disguised as patience. Lena, he said, don't do this. You're only making things worse. No, I replied, meeting his stare without flinching. I'm finally making things clear. Before he could respond, my phone vibrated silently in my pocket. A message from Rowan. Arrived. Waiting outside. My pulse steadied. The tide was finally about to turn. But as I prepared to walk Talia toward the door, Mark said one sentence that made my blood run cold. You're not going anywhere until we finish what I started. The fall of the man who controlled everything. For a moment, the room froze. Mark's words hovered in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. You're not going anywhere until we finish what I started. Talia's fingers gripped my arm. She was trembling so hard I could feel her pulse through her skin. I kept myself between them, grounding her, shielding her. Mark, I said slowly, move away from the door. He chuckled coldly. Why? So you can run to the police? So you can keep undermining me? His gaze sharpened. You think I don't know what you're doing, Lena? He stepped closer. Not rushing. Not shouting. But controlled, exactly the way he liked everything. I've given this family stability, he continued. Direction. A future. And what did I get in return? Lies. Disrespect. Disobedience. Talia's voice broke. I was scared, Mark. You were influenced, he snapped, pointing at me. She put ideas in your head. Turned you against me. I didn't move. Talia saw the truth. I didn't have to put anything in her head. Mark sneered. Truth? Talia can't even sort her emotions. She panics at everything. That's why I filed for custody. I'm protecting the child. You are taking the child, I said, voice low. There's a difference. His jaw locked. And in that split second, I realized something terrifying. He didn't see himself as the villain. He saw himself as the savior. The fixer. The rightful controller of every life in this house. So, I said gently, let's talk. Calmly. At the table. He hesitated. Good. He believed he still had power here. He believed we were scared of him. And that belief would be the reason he slipped. As he turned slightly, just enough, I squeezed Talia's hand. A silent command. Now. We moved toward the hallway. Mark spun instantly, eyes blazing. Sit down, both of you. But before he could take another step, a firm knock echoed through the door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Mark stiffened. Who is that? I looked him straight in the eye. Someone who understands business matters. Confusion flickered across his face. Then suspicion. Then fury. He lunged toward the door. But it opened before he reached it. Detective Rowan stepped inside, calm, unreadable, badge displayed. Good morning, he said. We need to speak with you, Mr. Dawson. Mark froze mid-step. About what, he managed, though his voice cracked slightly. Rowan held up a warrant. About financial fraud. Evidence tampering. Stalking. Attempted coercion. And the unlawful creation of fabricated documents. Talia gasped softly. Mark's face drained of color. That's ridiculous, he said. Lena fed you lies. Talia is unstable. She's a victim, Rowan interrupted. And we have proof. Mark opened his mouth again, but 2 officers stepped inside behind Rowan. Mark Dawson, Rowan said clearly, you're under arrest. For the first time since I'd known him, Mark looked genuinely rattled. He took a step back. Then another. Don't do this, he whispered to Talia. You know you need me. You know you can't raise a baby alone. Something inside her snapped. I'm not alone, she said through tears. I never was. That broke him. His mask shattered. He turned to bolt. But the officers were faster. Within seconds, his hands were pulled behind him, cuffs clicking into place. He thrashed once, twice, but the fight left him quickly. He looked at me last. A look of pure venom. This isn't over, he spat. But Rowan answered for me. Yes. It is. They dragged him out the door. The silence that followed was different this time. Not dangerous. Not controlled. Just quiet. Talia collapsed into my arms. I held her as she sobbed, stroking her hair the way I did when she was little. We stayed like that for minutes, breathing, shaking, healing. Rowan approached softly. He won't hurt her again, he said. I nodded, overwhelmed. Thank you. You saved her, Rowan replied. You both did. I looked at my daughter, my brave, broken, fierce daughter, and realized something. Mark didn't fall because of evidence. He fell because Talia finally stood up. And I finally stood with her. But even as the police car disappeared down the street, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of the story, only the beginning of rebuilding the pieces he tried to destroy. In the end, the truth didn't just save Talia's life, it freed her. But scars don't vanish overnight, and healing is its own brave battle. If this story touched your heart, share it, because someone out there might be living this nightmare in silence. Stay safe. Stay aware. And remember, sometimes the real monsters were perfect smiles.